Find this podcast and others like it at the #1 new media network, Podshow.com. Better, faster, stronger. And now with new minty fresh scent.
The Bible Study Podcast, Episode 3. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. This week I'm going to finish up the story in Luke 15. Luke tells the story about Jesus who is hanging out with the wrong people. He's hanging out with tax collectors and sinners, and the religious people are upset at him, and Jesus tells 3 stories. He tells the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son, or the prodigal son. And I told the first 2 stories 2 weeks ago, and I told the first half of the prodigal son, or the lost son, last week. So let's continue with that. Last week what we saw was the son, 2 sons. One son goes to the father and says, Father, give me half of what you have, which basically means, Father, I wish you were dead. Give me all the money that I would get if you were dead. He goes it off. He wastes it all. He's starving. He comes to his senses, and he says, even if I was just a servant in my father's house, I'd be a lot better off than I am now. So he comes back with a prepared speech. Father cuts him off, welcomes him back, puts a ring on his finger, kills a fatted calf. They're celebrating that this son who was dead is now alive. But the father has 2 sons. And so Luke picks up the story in Luke 15, So Luke picks up the story in Luke 15, starting in verse 25. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've been slaving for you, and you never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never even gave a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. My son, the father says, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So the other son is out working. He's been working this whole time while his brother's been spending money. Now his brother says with prostitutes. Apparently word has made it back to the family, just where the family funds have gone. And he hears the dance, and he comes and he hears your brother's back safe and sound and your dad's celebrating. And he's pissed off. Why is he pissed off? Well, he's been doing all the right stuff. He's been here the whole time working hard for good old Dad, and now Dad is celebrating this wayward son, this prodigal son. Okay, well that's part of why he's mad. Why else is he mad? Well, remember, at the beginning, the father divided everything he had into half. Half for the one son who stayed, and half for the one son who blew it. That one went and spent it all. So whose half is that fattened calf coming from? Yeah, that's right. It's coming from this son. That's his fatted calf, as far as he's concerned. That's his half. This is terribly, terribly unfair. And that's part of the point of this story. God's love, because the Father here clearly in this story is representing God the Father, who is waiting for us. Even while we're a long way off, all we have to do is turn around and he runs to us and embraces us and welcomes us back no matter what we've done to him. God's love is not fair. We don't always get what we deserve. There's two words in the Bible uses that are related to this. One word is mercy and one word is grace. And mercy is when we deserve to be punished and we're not. When we don't get what we do deserve. And grace is the opposite, but related. Grace is when we get something we don't deserve, something good that we don't deserve. God's love is gracious, and God's love is merciful. This son did not get what he deserved. This story is not fair. And Jesus is not trying to say it is. He's not trying to say that the religious leaders who are angry that he is eating with these people who are notorious sinners, that God doesn't want them to do the right thing. What he's saying is that God still loves these people. The Father still loves this son who went off and squandered everything he had. And that's the point he's trying to get across. This is not a story of weighing the scales of justice and figuring out what people deserve. This is a story of love. And this is the reason why I started with this series of verses, for this particular podcast, is this is the heart of the gospel. This is what God is all about. And Jesus is trying to explain this to the religious leaders, that I'm with the people you think I shouldn't be with because God still loves them. Now, the other interesting thing here is the brother is mad because he's thinking, he can see clearly that this isn't fair. And he's envious of his brother because why? Has he really had the worst part? He talks about, you never even gave me a kid so I could celebrate with my friends. Well, he's got friends who are celebrating with, who are his friends despite the fact that he doesn't have anything to party with them. He's got friends. How about the other son? The other son had half the estate. I'm going to guess that he had help spending it when he had money, but when he had none, he was off feeding the pigs and starving. What happened to whatever friends he might have had that he had when he had money? They were gone. They were of no help to him at all. And that's part of what the Father is trying to say at the end of this story is, my son, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. It's almost like, my son, you're always with me. You envy him? You want what he had? Why would you want that? You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But, he said, we have to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And that's the heart of the gospel. The love of God. More information about the Bible Study Podcast can be found at thebiblestudypodcast.com.
Get this podcast and more great ones like it on the High Performance Podcast Delivery Network from Podjo and Limelight Networks.
I love it. For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.